Welcome to the Left Coast Live. I am your host, Dieter McBusiness, joined as always by the one and only stateless patriot, Stat Pat. It is Tuesday, March 19th. Thank you for
Damn.
enjoying the hiatus that we went on for about a week. But now we were back in action, and we've got a lot to catch up on, my man.
Oh yeah.
First of all, though, how have you been? What have you been up to?
I've been relatively well, honestly.
Oh yeah,
Super
good.
busy. Like I actually worked both my jobs the past 3 days, apart from Sunday, just one job. So I've been really busy on the job front and whatnot. But overall, like not too bad. Just like trekking through, trying not to let certain things get me down. Like any other day, I guess you could say. But yeah, not too bad.
Right on. Well, you're in a very different part of California, so I know it's a little bit rougher up there
Oh
for
God, yeah.
progressives like us.
Oh, big time.
Speaking of which, we'll do. Why don't we open up with a very brief California-specific story while we let some people come in here to the chat and so forth. I'm sure we'll hear from Thunderbird soon enough.
Yeah.
But El Dorado County, in between Tahoe and Sacramento, not
Oh
far
yeah.
from where you are,
Yep.
they're getting rid of a clean syringe program.
Really.
Uh, and this is kind of in line with what we've been talking about with rehab, having like for
Yeah.
homeless, having like a homeless rehab system,
Right.
which can basically take people out of society for probably at least four, probably closer to 8, and as many as 12 weeks,
Yeah.
and get their life together, do psychological evaluations, figure out what they're good at, plug them into a job and housing, and keep them busy.
Mhm.
It's good for everybody. But they want to. This is the most basic thing, like ever, is clean syringes. I
Yeah.
mean, talk about spreading diseases and containing. The article I read did this comparison with even in a place like Indiana, where they started using clean syringes. You saw, the spread of all these diseases drop by 60, 70 points inside of 7 years.
Yeah.
It's just huge amounts of
So what?
risk mitigation. So
Yeah.
I don't know. It's
Exactly. So why take away the program? Did like how long was it in place in the first place? Do you know?
No, I don't. It's been around for a long time, though. It's California, so I think it's
Okay.
been around for over 20 years. But yeah, I was very surprised to see that. And of course, they quoted some law enforcement. And again, we're running into the right wing entitlement, right wing narcissism with these law enforcement people. Like they interviewed this sheriff, and he's like, I don't know. The research just doesn't add up to me. It doesn't fit with what I see on the street. And it's
Oh
like,
my God,
dude,
dude. That's
what
not.
you see on the street is completely biased and
Yes.
misinformed.
It's
I mean, you are
anecdotes.
not, and you're not looking at it from their perspective. You see these people as a problem,
Uh huh.
right? Them together is a problem, but individually they're just scarred. They're messed up people. They probably had really shitty parents,
Yeah.
or if they even had parents.
Yeah. No
So I
kidding.
don't know. It seemed like this clean syringe program. It doesn't. It just. It's just more superficial cognition. Like I was going through
Sure.
my old episodes today, and the self-serving superficiality of
Yeah.
capitalist conservative cognition. It was a beast of an episode, and
Yes.
it basically is though that they only look at things long enough to get that feeling of, oh, I'm right. Yeah, I'm right. I can move on to the next thing. I can get back to what I want to get to in my life. I don't have to pay attention to this anymore. And they take the easy way out.
That's right.
And, I quote Harry Potter in one of my episodes where Dumbledore is like, the choice now, Harry, comes down to what is right versus what is easy and how true it is. How true that is in this situation where you see addicts, and the easier choice is to just look at them as demon-ridden souls, as
Right.
opposed to like, you know,
People.
wounded animals,
Yeah.
wounded people that need help and literally can't function. And it's bad business, by the way. It costs the state, costs the California taxpayer a hell of a lot more money for someone to have to go to the hospital who doesn't have health insurance,
Yeah.
who, I mean, where's that all that stuff's got to get paid for? Who
Right.
pays for it? The state. So come on,
Yeah.
let's think long term. And Newsom had 8 years
Hmm.
to do something serious, do something state, and have we've talked about how Nixon said that change moves from west to east in the country. Why have we not gotten? Why is California not on the cutting edge of homeless rehabilitation? Not just drug rehab, okay? Because drug rehab is about 40, 50, 60 years old. AA's been around a hell of a lot longer than anybody else, right?
Right.
On this stuff. Let's build on that knowledge and get people into places of productivity and utility. So I don't know. What do you got to say about all that?
No, I mean, it's entirely baffling because in the end, like, you're helping these people, even if it's not like you're not going to take away a junkie's impulses. You're not going to take away their
Right.
addiction. Like you're not
Right.
just going to end that. But what you can do is make it safer for them, so that way they're not contracting diseases and spreading it amongst everybody else that they're shooting up with, or what have you. You know, it really does come down to like just selfishness. Honestly, you're choosing not to see it from their perspective. You're choosing not to see it from the point of view where like these people need to be taken care of and not just like punished, because like that's
Discarded.
yeah
Hmm.
and like a big dividing line between the right and left in this country is rehabilitation versus punishment. You're not going.
Deterrent, they would call it. The conservatives love to use that word, deterrent. Give me a
Right.
break.
That's not going to deter them from like you're not going, just like with abortion. You're not going to deter people from getting abortions just because you ban it outright. You're just going to make it less safe for
Right.
them. Like
Back alley. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. That's all it comes down to. So like this idea that you're going to be like that punishment is the way forward. They're not going to learn anything. Like that's not how the nature of addiction works. Like to begin with, it's just
There's
ignorance.
also a little bit of a practical thing in terms of our system that we would like to see created. This is a point of contact. You have a relationship with this addict because you're giving them clean syringes. So when they are ready to be like hit the wall and be like, okay, I'm ready to get my life together, where do you think they're going to go? To the place where they got the clean syringes.
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
a lot of this
Of
stuff is
course.
common sense. A lot of this is just thinking through. Like, most of it is reading the research. Most of
Yeah.
it is who you listen to and finding the right experts to listen to. Because a lot of people hear experts and they're like, well, what are their credentials? And I just happen to know enough about addiction. And, it started in eighth grade. I mean, really, my school just prioritized like the best way to prevent kids from doing drugs and having irresponsible, unsafe sex is to keep it in the cookie jar and say you can't see that and
Abstinence.
you can't
Yeah.
touch that, and then they're going to go and do it anyway, and they're not going to do it safely. So
Yeah.
the best way to prevent them from making stupid decisions is to make sure they know the consequences of those decisions. Duh.
Exactly. That's exactly it. Like if you teach them like it doesn't even have to be a show don't tell thing. Like you don't have to be like, oh well, that hot plate is hot. Don't touch the boiling water, and they do it anyway. Oh, that's a learning experience. No, you can it. You tell them by like showing the consequences. You like telling about like what happens if you go down this path and you do these things, or you do this without taking the proper precautions. I think every school should have like a very brief course on the Streisand effect. Because if you spend a whole lot of time saying, don't look at this over here, don't do that, like just like this isn't allowed, don't even bother like looking into this at all, just like refrain from XYZ, the Streisand effect says they're going to do it anyway. Like
Right.
it makes it more appealing because it's forbidden. There's a mystery behind it. Like, oh, what is there to this? Why is authority so adamant about keeping me away from it? Like, that's not the way to approach things.
Have you ever seen Danny Glover's Scared Straight? I guess it was started in the late 70s, but have you ever seen Scared Straight?
I actually have not.
No. Um, So what they do, and maybe we could watch it at some point, but it's a little intense. What they do is they take these troubled teens into a prison, and the prisoners who have committed crimes, whatever, murder,
Mm-hmm.
grand theft auto, you know, 7-Eleven robberies, stupid stuff, whatever.
Yeah.
These guys, these prison inmates, just scare the hell out of these kids. They're like, you do not want to end up like me, and here's why. Like, I have to worry about getting gang raped in the shower now. The food sucks. I haven't been able to make love to a woman in 10 years. Like the real consequences.
Right.
So when it's delivered, like the method by which the message is delivered, right? There's Marshall McLuhan, the medium is the message. If you don't nail the method of communication, the communication itself is worthless. It
Exactly.
doesn't matter what you say so much as how you say it.
Yeah.
It matters the source of information, the source of the voice. That's why, like, you know, we got the Hollywood vote, right? We
Mm-hmm.
got the Hollywood culture on our side. Why are we not using that in evaluating talent? What do people want to see from their left wing political leaders more than anything else? In my opinion, commitment to the cause.
Yeah.
My opinion is commitment to the cause. It's not, here's uh, I'm really good at fundraising. It's not I represent a certain demographic. It's not I've got a really riddled history of misfortune in my family. It's not, oh, I served in the military, so I'm automatically a trustworthy public person. No, it's commitment.
Yeah.
And it's how far are you willing to go to defeat the enemy? Because, a litmus test is, do you think that we're in the middle of Civil Rights 2.0 or
Mm-hmm.
Civil War Part 3? And
Right.
if your answer is no, then I can't work with you.
Right. Yeah. No, I completely agree. Yeah. It is like the approach in the prison. Like I completely agree with that. Like if you show, you really do have to scare people awake. In some regards, especially from a young age, because God, dude, like where I am, so many disrespectful rat punk kids, dude, that don't have a clue, that don't know. I mean, like discipline in a healthy way is very very useful because it, if you're able to like be taught at a young age, like just how to be respectful of people around you, your environment, or what have you, life in general, it's going to go a long way. Like, but if you're just neglected or like your words are empty and there's nothing reinforcing it, then it's easy to see how a lot of people from a young age end up on the wrong path, and there needs to be a whole lot more put into being role models and figures
Yeah.
for the kids that don't know any better because they're not shown, they're not taught properly how
Right.
to behave, I guess.
Here we are again at the juncture of parents and values and
Hmm.
behavior. I mean, that's really what it comes down to is
Of
parents.
course.
And if I ever get into a position of influence, one of my big advocacies is people should be scared to have kids. You should be scared. It's a
Yeah,
huge
I
responsibility.
sure
It's going
am.
to be it's going to be the most important thing you ever do. So
Yep.
don't fuck it up.
Yep.
Um, so yeah, I think the level of commitment is really what's required from left-wing leaders. It's just a willingness to say what's required to be said. I think a lot of these lefties are scared to death of the NRA card-carrying members, no matter what state they're in. I mean, people could drive from Idaho to San Francisco just to make a point.
Yeah.
If you call the MAGA trash MAGA trash, I mean, why is the term "son of a slumlord"? I'm going to be working on this for one of my episodes. But for example, Trump is the truth. It is a fact that Donald Trump is a son of a slumlord. So
Right.
why was that not used left and right as just a beautiful little insult to make him feel small? I mean, the rhetorical warfare matters. It matters a lot. I
Yeah.
mean, as far as a lot of the next generation, do you think that I mean, you're a different. We're different generations. I can tell you, with beyond a shadow of a doubt, that a lot of millennial problems with the Democratic Party is just based on how weak they are. It's just
Yeah.
whether or not that's
Oh
true.
yeah.
It's based on their perceived weakness. They are
Yes.
perceived as the party that, when they have power, they don't use it the
Right.
right way.
Exactly.
They don't use it to execute their agenda. They sit back and they're too scared to make a mistake.
Right.
You know,
Exactly.
so that's the way that a lot of millennials look at the Democratic Party. I
Yep.
wonder. I'm interested to hear, though, what do your Gen Zers think?
Well, I, uh, I think I mean my both my parents are well, yeah. I'm like literally like right on the cusp of millennial Gen Z. So like
Oh, okay.
you know, from what I can tell, because I am friends with a lot of Gen Z, like people in their early mid 20s and whatnot, and a lot of it really does come down to like bleakness and indifference because they just think,
Apathy.
yeah, yeah, like I mean, the those that are involved or engaged at the very least, I mean, it's uh, it's hard to say whether or not they see much point in a lot of it. I mean, don't get me wrong. Like, I mean, just 4 years ago, like I was barely 25 and I was voting in my first general election. And I felt like I was actually like voting against something rather than for something. But because a lot of us like, were convinced, a lot of millennials voted for the first time in that election. Um, it's hard to convince people to fight for something when there's really just like nothing really there to like. I guess there's not many figures, there's not many role models, there's not much excitement, there's not much pressure, I guess you could say, because in the end, like we don't have we don't have a full democracy. Like it's the whole system's corrupt all to hell. Like the more money you have, like the more sway you have, the more influence you have. Obviously, I mean, watch that wealth thing, and that translates to politics too, because of the Citizens United case. Like, money equals free speech, and you can go on OpenSecrets.org and see who owns all your politicians. It's bleak and indifference, like would probably summarize
Apathy.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean,
apathy. A lot of Gen
I think
Zers.
that if you were to ask them the question, what do they at least believe the government does for them, they would say very little.
Exactly.
If you were to ask them, I was like, okay, what about fire department, police department, water, power? They'd be like, okay, yeah, you're right. They're like
Yeah.
military. Then they would kind of pick it up and they'd be like, yeah, those things are important. They just don't think let long about it because they've got other things to
Yeah.
think about. They've got Instagram, they've got
Uh huh.
TikTok, they've got their girlfriends and boyfriends and their latest. I can't imagine the complex context
Right. Yeah.
of the environment in which these kids are growing up now. I can only imagine the kind of curveballs parents are dealing with.
Right. No. No kidding. Like I got my brother who lives with me is 21 and his partner's 20, and both of them like it. I don't. I would not know like how to put myself in the shoes of someone that young because they were raised from a young age, early 2000s, to like where all this technological advancement was like at the forefront of their early development. Whereas for me, like I can still remember VHS tapes and TVs before they were flat screens. Recording songs off of off of FM radio onto cassette tapes and whatnot. I still got a CD collection, all this stuff. But like a whole lot of Gen Z can only pinpoint the negatives of the government and what it has done, like on a policy level, the way it behaves, It's history, you know, and there's of course you're not going to have many good things to say because like I mean and I think they even transcends generations as well. Like everybody wants to focus on like just how shitty the
Yeah.
government is. I mean it's hard to
Well, there's no track record. There's like you were talking about, like where's the credibility, where's the
yeah,
branding, where's the wins? It's like, hey, remember when the
exactly.
Republican Party be like, hey, remember when we saved the country in 9/11? And say what you will about Dick Cheney, but at least he was a patriot, yada yada yada. And
God.
regardless of whether we like it or not, they do have that. And there's no
Yeah.
democratic tradition, right? Like our
Yeah.
this current Democratic Party goes back to Clinton. This is
Mhm.
not the Democratic Party of FDR.
No.
Okay, this is not the big
Yeah.
change Democratic Party of FDR, a lesser version of which we saw with JFK and LBJ.
Yeah.
This is
The-
not even that Democratic Party.
y-
This is a kind of, it tried to become conservative light, Republican light in the 90s,
Yep.
and then W brought in the religion in a whole new
Yeah.
way in
Mhm.
2000.
Yeah.
And then there was this huge reaction. We thought we were getting progressivism, and instead we got more incrementalism.
Mhm.
And that's the paradigm shift I would like to see. We've talked about it before, but it's so important to keep talking about that. I'm going to be 40 in, let's see, 12 days. So what I'm wondering is, am I going to die with all of these problems that I'm looking at even worse than they are now? Because when I was born, all these problems looked like they were going to be getting better,
Mhm.
right? Like by the time, like I've told you, I was promised a better America, and so were you.
Yeah.
Less so you though, because you grew up in a post 9/11 world, whereas I had about 17 years of no, international terrorism kind of threat.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I remember in middle school, like the entire school went to the multipurpose room to watch President Obama's inaugural address. Like I remember that distinctly. I remember in middle school people talking about, oh, who's going to be president? And of course I'm like politically inept. I don't know what's going on. I'm just like 12, 13 years old. So it's like, oh, cool. Our first black president. That's pretty cool. Awesome. Whatever. So like, yeah, no, and we were talking about before. Like you can, like Republicans have it locked down. You can point to like anything. Like remember, like you said, remember how we saved the world after 9/11? If you just assert that, because like there's not. I mean, there's not much.
Well, look at
honesty
Reagan.
there.
Look at the false credibility they get off of Reagan. It's like,
Yeah.
remember when Reagan won the Cold War? Remember when Reagan
Oh
told
my
Gorbachev
God.
tear down this wall? They have gotten
Yeah.
40 years of mileage off of that crap.
God
And
damn it.
the Democrats don't have any of that.
That's
I mean,
what- yes.
we have some of it with Obama. I mean, Obama, talk about like
Yeah.
the casting choice of everybody wanted.
Yeah.
Everybody. It's the guy that everybody wanted on the left
And
to,
then, like-
to represent the big change movement, and it just was more incrementalism. I mean, for Christ's sake, Obamacare came out of the Heritage Foundation.
Yeah, we wouldn't
What-
have
what are we
had
doing here?
we wouldn't have had Trump if not for his shortcomings. Like he came
Right.
directly after Obama.
Yes.
Like that's all it comes down to. Like
That's another litmus test question. That's another litmus test question. Is number one is, do you think America is a meritocracy?
Mhm.
And if the person says yes, don't respect their judgment.
Yeah,
If
Republicans
and then,
they love
Go
to like they no that like they love to assert false credibility when it's
Yeah.
all bullshit, and Democrats don't they can really utilize a lot of that to their advantage. But I mean, the thing is, they kind of do, but they point at the wrong things. They point at the. I mean, they really wanted Hillary Clinton. We did not.
yeah.
They like to point at like compromise and civility
Right.
and bipartisanship as like things to champion, like Biden.
Well, not anymore, and MAGA doesn't do that. That's actually indicative of the internal division that defines the right wing America right now. But what
Well,
I was
I'm
going to
talking
say
about
was
Democrats.
the second question for the litmus test is: do you think it is going to be love and kindness, or righteous, unapologetic conflict that gets this country out of the rut we've been in for coming up on 50 years now.
Yeah, no
And
kidding.
the answer is obviously righteous, unapologetic, rhetorical conflict.
Yeah, that's what's going to
And
have to be. Like you have to win the rhetorical war. Like all this unity and talk of like getting along and like we're America. There's nothing we can't do. We believe in civil
which is
liberties and
ridiculous.
this
That's
this
American
not
exceptionalism to suggest that's
for
such
real.
hubris. There's
Yeah.
nothing we can't
Oh
do. Oh, so
God.
that's exactly how we got into Iraq and thought Iraq. Sorry, we should
Yeah.
make sure we pronounce the Middle Eastern countries properly because no one else does.
Of course.
So it's as if they have two R's. So it's Iraq
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
Iran. And anyway,
Yeah.
so yeah, I mean that attitude
Well,
is why we invaded Iraq because we were just like, oh yeah, of course we can go in and straighten things
Yeah,
out.
we're
and nation
America,
build.
like,
It's
why
oh
not?
yeah, because that worked really well for the Russians when they went into Afghanistan during the Cold War. I mean, when did we have to learn?
Yeah.
It was Vietnam all over again. It was just a different kind of Vietnam.
Of course, yeah. You can use all the kind of flowery language you want, but it's not going to sell. Like that's all Democrats like to rely on. You know, flowery language
Prose,
rather
yeah,
rather
flowery
rather
prose.
than righteous rhetorical conflict. Like that has to be centerfold when engaging with like the most extreme right party that the Republicans have ever been. Like there has not been a more extreme uh, 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 um, I
Version of the GOP.
yeah basically it
Well, there's never
ever.
been a GOP in American history that has so explicitly embraced lies
Mhm.
and falsehoods and blatant racism and xenophobia and Islamophobia and homophobia and transphobia and all the phobias. I mean,
Yeah.
I've never seen it used to be at least with the shroud of or a veil of,
God.
civility. Talk about civility politics. Like there was but now maybe it's better. I mean, you end up with this conversation of I'm trying to work on some writing
Well,
here
yeah,
with Trump. It's
no,
like a
right.
provocative title of one of my episodes is going to be how Donald Trump saved America. If we end up getting out of
Yeah.
this, we're going to look back and say the good thing that he did was shine a spotlight on this deep, dark, ugly part of America.
of
Because a lot of
course.
people like us knew it was always there, but not a lot of people know that it's there.
Yeah, exactly. That is 100% correct. Like literally, at least now, we are more able to properly distinguish between the Democratic and the Republican parties. Because like especially like back in the 90s and the 2000s, the Democrats were trying to swing right to appeal to more left wing, more right wing voters. Excuse me. Because that's how Clinton was. He was a compromiser, you know, and then Bush came along, dragged the Overton window even more to the right, and yeah, it was stuck there for a minute, and like Trump really. Like it's literally about out extreming yourself ever since he got into office. Like it doesn't
Right.
matter. Like there are a few things that you can point to, and like I wanted to bring a couple of them up. Like the IVF stuff.
Yeah.
Like even their own like Republican base is upset now because that actually helped to hit a whole lot of young people with family planning and having children and stuff. But you talk to these representatives, you talk to these Republican senators and congressmen or whatever, they don't have a motherfucking goddamn clue what they just voted on. They don't even know.
Right. They didn't even read the bill.
They don't have. Yeah, they think it's about like saving kids or
No, they do what they're told.
the
They do
sanctity
what
of
they're
life
told.
and what exactly or like
If they were talented, brah, they would be in the private sector.
yeah, no kidding.
If they were talented people, they would be in the private sector. They are not
Yeah,
talented.
they're
Their
not.
talent is doing what they are told to do. Kind of
Exactly.
like a background actor in like no one wants to be a background actor. You're just there on
Right.
set and hopefully you get noticed and yada yada yada. But the background actors that do end up becoming stars, you know what they're really good at? Doing what they're told to do.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Exactly.
And
Yeah.
that, and that's what those IVF voters are doing. They're just doing what the religious right evangelical packs are telling them to do, and it's disgusting.
Yeah.
It is disgusting. This
It
IVF stuff
is.
is, I mean, I don't even, it's not, doesn't even affect me. But it's just like, why can't you mind your own goddamn business? Like, I
Right.
thought I grew up with the conservative value of privacy.
Uh huh.
And I thought
Roe
that
v. Wade being overturned just flipped all
right,
down its head. Yep.
it redefined privacy.
Mm-hmm.
It completely redefined
Yeah,
privacy.
it's to the point now where they went after the IVF thing, and now it's like this is too far. There's no length that they won't go to. There's no extreme that they won't go to. They'll go as far as they possibly can just to score points on Twitter or you know.
Well, they call it red meat for their base.
Yeah,
Is the cliche.
exactly. Out extreme themselves, basically. And it's to the point where now, it, I mean, this is jeopardizing even their own stability as a party, which has been on shaky ground since the midterms. And not only that, they'll literally point to any problem in the country and just say, "Oh, this is because of woke. This is because of woke. This is because of
Or it's
D-
because of the southern border, or it's
it's
because
because of
blacks are all
immigration,
criminals,
yeah, or
and blacks are all
DEI."
fatherless, and the
Yeah,
racism and the xenophobia. I mean, they have their greatest hits album, man.
for
It's the
real.
same. It's on repeat,
It's entirely frustrating.
but it works.
Yeah,
But it works.
I was reminded of just
We'll see how well it works this fall. I mean, this is a
Yeah.
watershed year. Oh my God!
Yeah,
And
it
I
really
think
is.
the stakes will drive outcome. I think the stakes will drive outcome and get people to figure it out, and
Yeah.
fill out the paperwork and hopefully show up on the election day. But anyway, you were saying something.
Yeah, yeah. Oh, on that point, if the Biden administration really ramps up the Gaza support and whatnot, then he might actually stand a chance. And not to mention, we're going to be talking about Trump soon in his cases, and with what's going on there, that might even further help Biden's chances. But yeah, so DEI, diversity, equality, and inclusion.
Inclusion.
Even that, it's now their scary
Yeah.
buzzword of the day
Oh,
right
the
now.
thing about the
It was-
pilots, these
Oh
airline pilots,
my
with like
God.
4% are black, 5% are women, or
Yeah,
something like
yeah,
that.
the interview
And
with Elon Musk and Don Lemon. Yeah, and it's like there. I saw a comic by, I think it was Branco or whatever. This conservative rag who makes the dumbest comments. It was a Boeing plane flying through the air, and there was a missile coming at it that said DEI. It's like, are you trying to tell me that Boeing, which has skirted regulations, takes government subsidies, overpays their CEO, and doesn't go through the proper safety regulations, and so their planes are falling apart? Are you saying that that's because they're hiring more black people
Right.
and women? Not because that they're buying back their own stock and inflating their own shares. Not the fact that their CEO is getting
Well, it's a good
billions in
example of what
bonuses.
happens when you do the false god thing and the false messiah thing with these famous billionaires, and you think they walk on water. These entrepreneurial tech billionaires
Yeah.
are, they are gods, right? To a lot of people, not to me, but
God.
to a lot of conservatives, these tech entrepreneurial billionaires,
Yeah.
like Elon Musk, they're gods to them, and
Mhm.
they think that they know everything and can think their way through anything. And this shows what influence can do to people, because Elon
Yeah.
Musk is definitely a smart guy. There's no way, you would be stupid to say he's not an intelligent person. But wherever he's getting his information is wrong.
His ketamine
It's just
trips.
wrong. They're just, yeah, he's telling them what they want to hear, and his yes men and women are just bringing him what he wants to hear.
That's
But
exactly
that guy's got so many issues. I mean, the
No, of
fine line
course.
between genius and insanity, man, he straddles that. He's on the insanity side at this point.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
No kidding.
I'm not impressed anymore.
Yeah, the more
I'm not impressed.
the more they seclude themselves off, the more unhinged they become. Like, he just becomes more and more right wing and placates to a lot of those bad faith actors on the far right, and it's so transparent. Like he doesn't have a clue. It's yeah, it's gross.
Can you
It's
imagine
disgusting.
being his kid or one of his kids? He is going to be the worst father. All he's going to do is
Oh
give
yeah,
them
no,
money.
yeah, no, like all
I mean, those kids are all going to be in therapy for their entire lives because of him.
like I
Because he's
think
going to be so lazy. He's
I
going to
think
be the laziest dad.
he has an adult daughter, I believe, and she changed her name, cut off all
Oh,
contact with him, like just wants
really?
absolutely nothing to do with him. Yeah,
Smart girl.
yeah,
What a smart
absolutely,
girl.
big
She probably
time.
got a severance. She probably got like 10 million bucks to go away or something like that. Hey,
Yeah,
start a new
of
life,
course.
sister.
Yeah, yeah,
Go do it.
exactly.
Start you good smart girl, man. Way to get out of
Yeah,
there. I'm telling you, just like that video that we saw about the superlative wealth. I mean,
yeah.
she made the right call.
Hmm.
Did you watch that show Succession on HBO before it became Max? Remember
Uh,
about the billionaire family? It was loosely based on the Murdochs of News Corp, somewhat of Trump and somewhat of Redstone. It was about anyway.
I didn't.
Um, no, no, no. They were just a billionaire family, and you should check it out because
Sure,
a lot of
I
what
do have
a lot of
Max.
what we're going through as a country, it shows you what happens to people when they get money instead of love. That's what a lot of
Yeah,
people with money think, that they're off the hook as far as the
right.
parental responsibilities because they're raising their kid in opulence,
Yeah.
and that's just not true.
Speaking of which, yeah. I can't imagine just how just frantic and chaotic the Trump family is doing right now because Trump's kids are
Half a
wrapped up in
billion.
it. God,
Yeah.
and interest keeps accumulating by the day. Trump cannot secure a uh, connection with a bonding agency that will help take on like these
The
these
debt.
hefty. Yeah, yeah,
Nobody wants
no,
anyone to do it. He's radioactive. He's
yeah,
radioactive.
yeah. Like he can't do business in New York anymore. Like
Yeah.
his kids can't do business in New York for like I think it's a couple years.
Right.
And if they can't secure like a bonding agency, they're going to start like seizing his assets,
Good.
like one by one. He's just gonna be stripped of everything because he doesn't actually have the cash on hand, and not to
Right.
mention, like he's having more people turn on him by the day, like people who worked at like Mar-a-Lago with
Yeah,
helping
the
him like
flippers.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
That's why we got to stay hot. That's why we got to stay available for this thing because there are gonna be some bombs here in the next 6 months. I
Oh
mean, what do
yeah.
we got? It's coming up on the end of March, so
By this time next week, we're going to have some big things because I think one of the cases is coming to finalization. I forget exactly what it is. So we'll definitely we'll definitely have something to talk about regarding that next week. But yeah, he I think he really is screwed. Like I don't really see
I'll
like
believe it when I see it. I mean, I hope you're right,
of
but it's the way
course.
you got to manage expectations,
I
as
mean, you
we'll
don't,
talk about in a second with this documents case, and he keeps
yeah.
saying shit,
When it comes to
no consequences.
his properties, like his real estate, like because they wouldn't take his real like all these bonding agencies and whatnot, they wouldn't take his real estate, like his real estate in general,
As
as
collateral?
collateral. Yeah,
Yeah, because they don't believe it's worth what they says it's
exactly,
worth. Yeah.
exactly. It's just fraud on top of fraud on top of fraud, and so like it's just like if it's not really hitting them now, it's bound to be because like the dominoes are falling one by one. Like the tower is crumbling, the Trump Tower is crumbling, so to speak. So it's gonna be quite the roller coaster, especially in the next couple months, as we see these cases wrap up and unfold. Because, like I said, like those fines, they're just accumulating because of the interest and whatnot. So
Right.
he like if he can't come up with it, like it's he's not
He goes to jail.
yeah, and he can't pay the people who work for him. So it's like he he, he
He's
could
gonna have to
just
file bankruptcy again on everything.
yeah, literally
He's
he
gonna
could
or
end up
he's
with
gonna file bankruptcy like right before election day or something.
my God, he's just gonna yeah
It's gonna be the culmination of a lot of crap.
for real. He's
And
gonna end up with
I mean, we should.
nothing.
So let's give let me give a couple of bullet points out here about these stories because this judge Eileen Lamar, is that her name? Eileen Cameron.
Hmm.
Um, She was running the Trump documents case. Okay, let me make sure I get her name right. Oh, sorry, it's Eileen Cannon. I had it
Okay.
written down. Eileen Cannon. She's got 4 years on the bench, and she's clearly in over her head. Okay, because she keeps botching this scheduling, and the trial hasn't even been scheduled yet. And here's the kicker: she was appointed by Trump.
Really?
Why is a federal judge who was appointed by Trump trying this case?
Right.
Like, does he really deserves that much of the benefit of the doubt? No, that's not the tradition of American politics. If you screw up, you get examined by a member of the other side of the aisle.
Sure.
That's how it usually works.
Yeah.
So the sheer incompetence of the justice system is never ceasing to amaze me. That's what amazes me more than anything these days is the sheer fat acidness of the justice system to get on top of any of these cases and actually execute justice.
Was
I
she
mean, what the hell? Some of these things are 5 years old.
was she the one that was overseeing the Georgia case?
No, No, this is the documents case.
No way. Well, I mean,
Yeah.
either way, that particular case is still, I think, like probably the most damning case like against
Well,
Trump.
it's so blatant.
Yeah,
It's so
exactly.
blatant.
Like literally. So like even
There's pictures of classified documents.
Mhm.
I mean, it just shows you the lack of respect
Yeah.
that Trump has
No big-
for government and public service. He doesn't look at it as public service. He thinks it's a
Yeah.
freaking fame game.
It's insane.
That's all he
Like,
thinks about it.
he's,
It's just another way for him to feel famous.
he's a traitor.
And people don't see through that. You got to be an idiot to see
Yeah.
through that. I don't like Biden. I got plenty of issues with Biden,
Yeah.
but he's not evil. He's easily influenced, but he's not.
Yeah.
And he's not so careless. Yeah, I mean, I know when we start talking about these documents case, there's that one that happened with him, but it wasn't even close to the same thing.
No, of
I
course.
think there was like
He-
19 counts or something for Trump.
Yeah, and he gave it up right away. Whereas Trump,
Yeah.
like, held on to it all and bragged about it, and now it's all falling apart at the seams. I think even like because of how blatant it actually is, like I don't even think that like it really matters too much that um, a Trump appointed judge is actually overseeing the whole thing. I mean, unless there's something that she's been doing like that's been in his favor that I'm unaware of. But either way, like with how much like incriminating evidence there is like against him, and
I just don't trust
the
this.
entire
I just
team,
don't trust anything Trump
right.
touches. I have no trust for.
Of course.
And it also has. I'm also scarred because it reminds. I know a lot about the O.J. Simpson trial, and you probably do too, because there have been so many great documentaries. ESPN did a 5-part series that was just fantastic, and there have been a lot of. There was that true crime, not true crime, but American Crime Story on
Yeah.
FX with John Travolta. That was really great.
I do the vague
and-
aspects of it, but it has something that has always perked my interest. But I've
Well, one
never
of
done
the
like a
reason
deep dive on
it started the whole possibility of OJ getting off started with them moving the trial from Santa Monica to downtown Los Angeles
Really.
because the crimes took place on that side of the 405.
Mhm.
So if you know anything about LA geography, there's
Right.
Santa Monica is the beach town in between the beach and the 405, basically.
Yeah, I've been there. Yeah.
And part of that neighborhood in Santa Monica is called Brentwood. That's where the murders
Right.
took place. So, by all rights, the trial should have taken place in Santa Monica. And he would have been convicted because it would have
Right.
been mostly white people and race wouldn't have been as big of a factor as it
Yeah.
was. But they moved it downtown because of Rodney King. And they had a famous black person on trial, and the LAPD was worried about looking racist. So the district attorney moved the case to downtown, ended up with predominantly black jury. The race play was made, and it was made very well, and they won. And they got off a guy who was a known murderer. They turned it into
Right.
the greatest FU in American legal history is the O.J. Simpson trial. He
Yeah.
got away with murder. I mean,
Yeah,
ended up having a pretty miserable life
of
afterwards for
course.
other things. So like he got his eventually, but not really. I
Yeah,
mean, he still got to walk scot free. But the point is that
yeah,
I do not play that game.
of course.
I want the win. Okay?
Yeah,
I don't care about how it looks. Okay? I want a Clinton appointed judge or an Obama appointed judge in that position
yeah,
because they're going to do it right.
of course.
A Trump judge, you're introducing another variable there. You are not removing a variable, you are introducing a variable, which is
Yeah,
loyalty. I mean, look at her. Look at what she's doing. She's delaying and delaying and delaying, so it gets murkier and murkier and murkier. And then, hey, maybe he wins. I don't even have to deal with this.
right.
I mean, is that what she's thinking? I have lost all social deference that I used to have for judges. I used to think judges were, a level above lawyers. I thought that they were on the upper echelon of our society's intellectual hierarchy. They are not.
Right.
They are not.
Yeah.
They are a product of the system.
Yep.
And the system is effed.
Yeah, yeah, big time. I mean, that's like the only. It's one of two major cases that are left for Trump, I believe, because now that the New York one's done, the E. Jean Carroll one's done, it's just the documents case.
January
Um,
6th.
yeah, the over yeah election interference case, January 6th, and I do believe
Georgia.
the electors case, yeah, the
Yeah.
fake electors and the perfect phone call, whatever it was, yeah.
Right.
So like either way, like we still got some time to go to see just how big of an impact these cases have on him. Whether
Just
out,
meditate, man. Meditate. And don't get your
yeah, I
hopes
mean
up.
if
And
they're if
prepare for Civil Rights 2.0 and World War or Civil War Part 3 because that's, I think, what we're going to get.
right, yeah,
Because even if he gets convicted on any of these things, if he's not allowed to complete his like run at the presidency, if he's not,
Yeah.
if he's taken off the ballot in certain places,
Mm-hmm.
if voters are told like within 10 days like voting for him isn't going to count, it's only going to be his VP, or if some of this stuff influences, maybe there's something, if there's a change at the best you could hope for is if the Republicans switch him out at their convention somehow. That's the best case scenario because then he would definitely
be
suffer all
wild.
the consequences.
Well, I mean, given the fact that like the RNC is now taken over by literally Trump loyalists who have been cleaning house and
Right,
have,
never gonna happen. Yeah.
and have said like yeah, like their like prime motive right now is to get Trump reelected. That's definitely going to be a tall order. But if these remaining cases are at least as damaging as these last two and I there is potential for them to be even worse, especially the documents case, then it's really hard to say like what kind of like path he even has forward after that. You know, he's either going to end up in jail or with absolutely nothing because there's really nothing saving him, and it's like he's not going to have the money to campaign, and like it's just going to turn public opinion against him more, like to enough of an extent to where he'll just lose. So like fingers crossed for that.
Well,
At the very
there
least.
were those polls a while ago that said, voters in Michigan. I think it was Michigan, maybe it was Wisconsin. I don't know, but it was one of the important states, one of the big five, and it was polling them saying like, if he gets convicted, would that change? Would you still vote for him? And there was a big chunk that said no. It's like 25% point move or something like that. So he loses if he gets convicted.
Yeah.
But shame on the justice system for not having already dealt with this stuff.
Yeah.
The
I do
classified documents case should have already been tried. January 6th should have already been tried. Georgia special election. I don't see why we needed this much time.
There's just
We had 3 years.
there needs to be more braver voices on the conservative right that are unapologetic in their patriotism and they see Trump for exactly what he is, a wannabe tyrant, a traitor who only cares about himself, doesn't care about the American people, doesn't care about the Constitution, doesn't care about accountability, doesn't care about the law. He- It just needs to be like someone on the right. I mean, it could be anyone, but like I think that message needs to be screamed and just publicized to the far reaches of every corner of the internet. Like or go on Fox News and Newsmax and whatnot, like and just point out exactly like like someone who is a red-blooded American, unapologetically, like American exceptionalist all the way, all about freedom, liberty, whatever buzzwords, and point out exactly how Trump is not allowed to be the next president. How you are not a patriot if you stand behind him.
Right.
You know, Armed and
Yeah.
AK says the Supreme Court has already ruled that Trump may not be taken off the ballot in any state. So that there is that too.
Yeah.
That Colorado is just really fucking stupid.
Yeah, they wussed out.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't like the finer details of the case that because this
Well,
was
the point is that there
centered
wasn't a
around the
ruling for whether or not they didn't have anywhere to go illegally of whether or not he was insurrectionist. They needed a
Right.
certified legal ruling
That's
that
exactly
he
what it
was
was.
an insurrectionist, and the
Yeah.
Supreme Court didn't do it. So here we are again at
Yeah.
the slowness of the Supreme Court to
Yeah.
get its job done.
Well, no,
I mean,
they
January
didn't have
6th
anything to go
should have
off.
been priority number one
Yeah.
on the Supreme Court list coming
Yeah.
out of that.
No,
So
of course, and that was Colorado's argument is like the insurrection, the 14th Amendment, and blah blah blah. But like because they're like those cases haven't been finalized yet, like the January 6th case and whatnot. The Supreme Court, I mean, because they had to act, like they couldn't just be like, okay, Colorado, your state constitution may say this, but we got blah blah blah. Um, they they weren't going to wait until these cases were finalized. So like, if it does come to like pass that like yes, Trump incited insurrection, this is all like completely legitimate. Maybe that decision gets reversed, but I don't know the finer.
Yeah,
the
neither do I.
detail. I'm not exactly sure how it works or how that would work, but
no,
we'll
the only
see.
thing that could maybe happen is maybe it could be like his voting for him wouldn't count. I don't know. We need some constitutional lawyers, right? That's why constitutional lawyers exist. Hey, my man Thunderbird sent a message a few minutes ago. Sorry, Thunderbird, I'm just getting to it now. Stateless mentioned CDs. I was recording digital audio on my Beta Hi-Fi with a
Oh
pulse
my
code
God.
modulator before we had CDs, and now I just stream digital music on the internet. So
Hey, me too.
so I think Thunderbird sounds like a boomer.
Yeah, it sounds like it's been around since 70s and 80s. Yeah, he said Betamax. Like, damn, and that's
Beta,
reaching,
yeah,
reaching,
Beta Hi-Fi.
yeah,
That's a
reaching
long
back
time
pretty
ago.
far. Yeah, like
That's a long time ago. Well, Matt, that's actually an interesting question. So, what do you think the boomer perspective? We got the elder millennial, we got the young millennial, elder Gen Zer perspective covered in here. But what do you think that the boomers are saying about the left these days?
honestly, whatever the fuck like Fox News and Newsmax is saying, honestly, because like
No, I mean
that
boomer
seems to be-
liberals. Like they're watching MSNBC
liberals?
and CNN.
I mean, it's the same thing. Like I mean, you do have your ideologically sound like boomer liberals that actually do understand like we do need a big uh, more of a progressive swing in this country, but also understand like the the corruption of the system and how it's rather futile, and a lot of them do just like regurgitate a lot of the talking points that you see on CNN and MSNBC. Oh, it's too pie in the sky. How are we going to pay
Right.
for this? How are we
How are
going
we
to
gonna
pay
pay
for
for
that?
it? Yeah.
Yeah, it's
Universal
like,
health care is unattainable. I mean, how are we still talking about this?
Right? Yeah, no kidding. Yeah,
I mean, I remember hearing about healthcare problems when Clinton got elected in '92. So I was 8 years old. So I mean, the healthcare, just like the Middle East military conflict, goes back to my single digits. Like that's
Right.
another problem, another area of problems, really,
Yeah.
that I was told, I guess implicitly, that by the time I really graduated college, so what are you talking about there? Like 15 years. So I was told at about 15 years that the Middle East would be kind of put back together and in good shape, and we'd have health care, kind of. It wouldn't be perfect, but it'd be a lot better than it is now.
yeah,
And everything's actually gone the other way. It's been a hell of a lot longer. It's been 30 years, and everything's gotten worse.
Right.
I mean, this Middle Eastern conflict. Hold on a second. We'll move into that in a minute. Thunderbird said the left is too far right. That's right. That's right, Thunderbird. The left is too far right.
Yeah, I
The left
agree.
is too far right.
Here's
I agree.
a take for you. Armed with AK also says both parties are two sides of the same coin. I agree to an extent. I think both
No, they're not. They're yes, they are the
they
same. Go
serve
ahead.
capital. They both serve capital. They both are lobbied by
Special
corporations,
interests. Yeah.
special interests, political action committees, or the PACs, super PACs and shit. So like in that regard, yeah, and they're bought by Wall Street, this and that, and this and that. However, in the past like several years, in the dawn of Trump, we just touched on this earlier. You cannot look at both parties and see the same behavior
Right.
like 8 years ago compared to now. Like
Yeah.
it's not even remotely close.
No.
It a lot of Republican like pundits and conservative pundits and whatnot, like people who are ideologically aligned with the Republican Party, people who live on Twitter and exacerbate the same talking points. All these people are extremists. All these people are far right. Even the people that like aren't like actively, loudly espousing like this extremist rhetoric and whatnot, they're still going along with it because they're voting for these bills that the majority of Americans don't agree with. Like maybe you'll get like half of Republicans that side with it, but like they're not in it. They're not passing legislation that actually helps you, and
No.
they're actively harming the American people. You can say that about the Democrats too, but like to like it's to a much lesser extent because there are actually a handful of progressive voices in the Democratic Party, and a lot of them are actually like more economically literate for one,
Yes.
and actually a lot more socially in tune with the wants and needs of the working class of this country. It's to a much it's to a it's I mean at least the Democrats have that. The Republicans don't give a flying motherfucker about the working class in this country, but at least Democrats have that going for them, especially with the National Labor Relations Board or whatever it is. We have a
NLRB.
stronger, yeah, we have stronger unions in this country now than we have in decades, and like if anything, the Democrats do have that going for them, and that actually does play. That should play a much bigger role in Biden's reelection chances if he gets his shit together. But yeah, like it ultimately go to opensecrets.org and see who owns your politicians and whatnot. And I cannot stress enough the importance of local races, state races, voting for people who aren't bought and like have millions of dollars behind them, like fucking Adam Schiff or whoever the fuck. That's ultimately
That
all
was
it comes
really
down to.
sleazy what he did. That was really sleazy what he did.
Right.
Squeezing up Hart Garvey.
Yeah.
Anyway, we talked about that.
Of
We should
course.
segue into Israel Gaza though, and just to touch on it. I mean, I said it since October 7th. Netanyahu has got to go, and until he's gone, this conflict is never going to cease. It's
Right.
just he has a prerogative for keeping the conflict alive because if the war does stop, then his corruption charges have to get dealt with,
Yeah.
and he has to actually stand trial for a bunch of these corruption charges. Apparently, like Hollywood has wined and dined him. There's this guy, this Hollywood producer, uh, Ar- Arnon Milchan, who was the head of Regency Enterprises, and he used to give. He gave Netanyahu like a bunch of gifts, and there's all sorts of
Yeah.
deals that Netanyahu made with the media magnates in Israel. I mean, it's rank corruption.
Yeah.
And the fact that the mainstream media here isn't emphasizing that, especially because we love scandal. Our media
Yeah.
loves scandal. Why are we
Course.
not embracing, why are we not focusing on the scandal at the heart of this conflict, which is
Yeah.
Netanyahu?
Yeah. A lot of the media is actually starting to pick up on it a whole lot more. You're starting to see like Chuck Schumer and Joe
Yeah.
Biden like actually
Yeah, well, it's
come
about
out,
damn time.
yeah, actually come out and point, like call out Netanyahu by name, and actually say like, yeah, this guy shouldn't be the leader of Israel anymore. Like that's just step one. Just like the ceasefire, that's step one. Because like if you don't like render the Likud party, I believe that Yahu's party in Israel, if you don't get rid of that festering pile of filth,
Right.
then this is just going to continue. Like a whole lot of things. It's a multifaceted,
Right.
complex situation. If you don't get like a whole lot of these different things done, this is just going to repeat. This
Yeah.
is just going to continue. It's
Yeah.
it's easy to point at one guy and place the blame on everything for him, but it really is. It doesn't come down to one person.
Well,
It's a lot
there
more
might be.
complicated
It's
than
just a
that.
logjam. I mean, we don't know what the other problems are because we can't get past this problem, which is Netanyahu. I mean, if we were to remove him from the equation, maybe we could see what the rest of the equation looks like. But right now, we can't see the inner workings of the problem on the ground, on the politics. And like, come on, guys, Netanyahu is notoriously far right.
Yeah,
How this is another we've talked about it before, missed opportunity. This is a missed opportunity for the Democratic Party to say Israel has gone way too far. This party is not bought by wealthy Jewish aristocrats in America. We represent truth and knowledge and power, right? Knowledge, truth, wisdom. That's what we're working with.
yeah.
That's
A lot of Americans, and especially
supposed to be anyway.
like Democrats in power and whatnot, like because they're receiving a whole lot of APAC money, and they're receiving their talking points from top down and whatnot. A lot of them actually don't really understand just how vile and racist a lot of not just Israeli leaders, but the Israeli public is as well towards not just Palestinians, but like African migrants that they're it's gross. It's
It's
absolutely
always
gross.
tough. It's always tough for white guys to comment on race,
Of
but
course.
I will. I always try to keep my offerings to that conversation pretty concise, and I will say that having had relationships, both friendly and social, the various array of types of relationships with people from different countries
Yeah.
all over the world, places like India and China and the continent of Africa and South America and so forth. Racism is everywhere.
Yes.
Every country has a problem with race.
Yeah.
Every country. And here's the deal. It's never that complicated on who has the upper hand in the racial conflict. It's always the person that looks more white. Down
Yeah.
in Mexico, for example, if you're more native looking, if you look like you have Aztecian heritage, that is, according to pop culture and, just cultural bias, that is less desirable than if you have European
Yeah.
heritage,
Right.
which is counterintuitive to me. I would have thought that the indigenous people would be more celebrated because it's originally their people's land. But
Right.
shows
Of
you what I
course.
know.
Yeah. 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 And like, I mean, from what I know about Mexico, like they're very, very nationalist. Very nationalist. They don't like foreigners living there. They don't like outsiders. They're not very fond of Americans settling, or living there at all. From what I know, but it's only like my understanding is at a surface level. But yeah, like it's the corroding facets within any society is the ability of your leaders, authority, government, pundits, personalities, whatever, to regurgitate that vile racist rhetoric and pass it down, dehumanize certain members, certain demographics within your society, or not within your society, and weaponize it to use it against the so-called undesirables and
Yes.
whatnot.
The other.
Yes, it's the same playbook that the fascists
Yeah.
of the 30s and 40s used.
Yeah,
It's the
it's
same.
it's the Lyndon Johnson quote. So I'm going to get it up because I
It's the
make sure I
MAGA
get it right.
movement today. It's the
Yeah.
anti woke movement
Oh, there's
or
nothing new
whatever.
about it. There's
Yeah,
nothing new
exactly.
about it.
It's the
Yeah.
same shit. It's the exact same
Okay,
shit. It
so I'm just quoting because I wouldn't use. There's a word in here I wouldn't use, but I'm just
Uh-huh.
quoting Lyndon Johnson. If you can convince the lowest white man he's better than the best colored man, he won't notice you're picking his pocket. Hell, give him somebody to look down on, and he'll empty his pockets for you. Oh, I should have
Yep.
done that in the whole time. And I tell you what, man, Lyndon Johnson was a benevolent bully. He obviously blew it with Vietnam,
Yeah.
but his domestic policies were very aggressive, and he was a notorious kind of political gangster almost with the
Yeah.
way he went about his business. He would show up at your office like unannounced and be like, "Hey, yeah, let's go have a walk and talk about your
Yeah.
policies and what I'm going to
Yep.
tell you what you're going to do for the next 3 days."
God, we need that back.
Yeah,
please,
the benevolent bully. We need to
yeah,
counter. We need some leadership.
the assertiveness, like big time.
Right.
Yeah. Like
On
yeah.
your toes. No, I mean I grew up at my the head of my high school growing up was this conservative priest, and he respected though he was the only conservative in the entire administration. Everybody else he hired was pretty liberal. He even hired basically a communist history professor, and because he respected them as intellectual equals,
Right.
and he also knew he was smart enough to know that he wasn't as smart as they were. I mean, we had some incredible professors with some, like Pulitzer Prize winner, shit like that.
Yeah.
And anyway, but he had the sense to know what his gift was, and I think Lyndon Johnson was the same way. His gift was to surround himself with good people and execute like good ideas, or at least well-intended ideas. The war on
Right.
poverty. I've studied the war on poverty. It was not a sound strategy. It was kind of an incomplete approach to the war on poverty, but the sentiment was, still benevolent. Like we shouldn't have given up. We should have been like, okay, what did we learn? Let's try again and get it right. We're still
Yeah.
living in the consequences of this idea that like, oh, well, we tried government and it didn't work, so let's give up on it. We're still
Yeah.
fighting that.
Yeah, and every administration, even on the Democratic side, had their shortcomings. Like even the civil rights movement had its shortcomings. With like the Civil Rights Act, for example, it there are always ways. Like if you have enough hate in your heart, you can find you can find a way around certain pieces of legislation and whatnot. Because even after that was passed, like there certain states wouldn't
Yeah.
let black families take out loans and whatnot. Wouldn't let them
Right.
take out mortgages for houses and whatnot.
Oh, it's going to
It-
take 20 years for a piece of that kind of legislation to trickle
Oh,
down to
God.
to local governments. I
It-
mean,
it's
everyone
it's
pats each
taken-
other on the back, and what's happened with affirmative action. I mean,
It's still bad.
Black America just keeps getting screwed over
No,
left and
you're
right.
kidding.
It's just
And I
ridiculous.
and I see it firsthand, like with the work that I do too. It's just like a lot of Section 8 housing, a lot of just really poorly maintained neighborhoods that were thrown overboard, years ago. Just like investment just packing up and getting and leaving and whatnot. It's really bad, and like when Reagan introduced like our credit score system, that just made it even worse. Like because
Right.
it's disgusting, and it really all stems back to racism. That's all it
Yeah.
comes down to. Yeah, it's gross.
Thunderbird, I want to make sure he gets some love. My most loyal fan here. Over 60 years ago, we were promised technology boom was going to allow everyone to work less and spend more time with their families. Then Nixon packed Supreme Court with corporatists. Here we are. It's interesting that began 60 years ago. I wouldn't have thought that it began that long ago, but that's a recycled idea too. Oh, technology will save us. Technology will save us. I studied that in college. We project messianic qualities onto new forms of technology when they arise because we want an easy answer. For
Yeah.
example, the corruption of the railroad industry was supposed to be cleansed by the advent of the commercial airline travel, and that didn't happen. And commercial airlines ended up becoming problematic as well. Every
Yeah.
new industry, every new space goes through puberty, goes through an economic adolescence, and we end up with the for-profit motive, if we're not careful, corrupting the integrity of the space, whether
Yeah.
it be something like airline travel, like we
Yeah.
were talking about at the beginning of the show, and safety regulations there that everyone seems to be really worried about,
Yeah. No,
despite it being the safest way to
it's
travel. But
it's
like there's, go ahead.
no, it's actually really funny, like because it turns out if you happen to give these industries like hundreds of millions, even billions in government subsidies, they don't improve. Like that money doesn't go to where it needs to go. It goes straight into the pockets of the wealthy CEOs and
Yeah,
whatnot.
usually they do. Usually it gives them an
Or
opportunity to put in a stock buyback.
yes, exactly. Yep.
Stock buybacks are just stock buybacks are basically just
Another thing that Reagan fucking
another
deregulated.
form of giving. Stock buybacks are basically just another way to a creative way to give a dividend, or just a boost in the share
Artificially
value.
inflate. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Well, this idea,
Another thing that Reagan did
this is
away
what the
with,
left
yeah.
isn't doing though. The left isn't like we've become addicted to lower taxes. We think lower taxes is the answer to everything. Economic growth is not driven, should not be driven by tax cuts.
Yeah,
I mean,
of course
yes,
not.
when the government has a surplus, then maybe there's an opportunity for a tax cut there. But based on income inequality numbers I've been looking at for the last 40 years, there's no reason why we should be having any tax cuts on anybody that's making more than $500,000 a year.
Yeah, no
You
kidding.
know,
Not at all.
Um,
Like there's no reason for
I
it.
mean, yeah, like, and the tax cut, the thing that we need to get better at taxing is passive income. And how do we
Yeah.
tax that? Because the money
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
get taxed until it comes out of the market. And then when
Right.
it does get taxed, and I actually do see the logic where it's like, okay, you make $1,000 from your paycheck, you invest that $1,000, and then 10 years later, it's, let's say, $10,000. Now you take that money out. What should that money be taxed at? Well, probably not at like 50%,
Right.
because it's money that's already been taxed. Okay, but it's grown, so it's capital gains. What is that number? Sometimes it's 14%, sometimes it's 23%. I think it gets up to 26% in some circumstances.
Yeah.
But there needs to be complete transparency about corporate tax cut and 0.1%er and 1%er tax cuts. Now, later this year, I have got an exciting idea related to this, but I can't talk about it any more than that right now.
Oh, really? Cool.
Yeah, related to this, because something we'll talk about eventually is debt, and not just federal debt, not
know-
just medical debt, but consumer debt. And it's a ball and chain, man. It's a weight on these people, and they cannot get out of it. It's just the payments
Yeah.
they can't get ahead of it. They can't get ahead of the payments.
Yeah, a lot of it is very predatory, and the accruement of interest and whatnot. It's gross. Yeah, I mean, speaking of that, Armed and AK commented this a while ago, but I didn't want to insert it just randomly. I don't know, man. I just look at our just about $35 trillion in debt and think that both parties have sold us down the river. I mean,
Okay, so your audio's a little bit. I think when you look down, your audio sucks for some reason.
oh, weird. So I said,
Now you're good.
He says, I don't know, man. I just look at our just about $35 trillion in debt and think that both parties have sold us down the river.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he's not wrong. I
Yeah,
mean, look at them jacking up the military budget $100 billion every year.
right.
It wasn't that much last year, but it's basically
Yeah.
it's at least $30 billion, and it's sometimes $100 billion more for the military every year. Do you know how inefficient and fat and out of shape the U.S. military is? See, it's got,
Yeah.
because of the nice snazzy uniforms, we think that the U.S. military is a lean, mean fighting machine that does everything right and does
Yeah.
everything efficiently. Bullshit.
Nah.
Bullshit. I know for a fact that the military, and a lot of this has to do with transparency because we can't see what they do with all their money,
Right.
is extremely disorganized,
Yeah.
is not on top of its operations,
Pentagon
and because of the
fails its audits.
budgeting system, they'll do things like fire a bunch of ammo at the end of the year to make sure that they get the same amount of ammo for next year that they got last year, because they don't want to be because they're doing a
Gross.
survey that year, and they want to make sure that they have as much ammunition as they'll ever need and more.
Disgusting.
And it's like little things like that. I have a creative idea about What if there was an incentive program in the military for soldiers, sailors, officers, everybody? If you came up with a good idea on how to save the military money, you got like an extra week of vacation that year, or I don't know. I mean, make it money. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, you can save with creativity, with creative approaches to problem solving. You can save so much money.
for
You
real.
can save so much money.
Yeah,
And there needs to be a larger. But at the end of the day, Eisenhower warned us, and we didn't listen.
yeah. The
The
military industrial
beware
complex.
the military industrial complex. Here it is, and it's been
Yeah,
here for so long. It's like we didn't. It really blew up
yeah,
under Reagan, and then it just kind of exponentially grew and grew and grew.
yeah.
And did Obama ever do anything to address that? I really don't think he did.
Nope. I think he. I mean, with each
He just
new
kind of accepted
administration,
it, right?
like I think each budget passed, it was a record high defense budget. Like no matter who it was, and even up to today as well. Yeah, like and the Pentagon continues to fail audit after audit. Like there's like $9 trillion missing or some shit like that. It's like what in the actual fuck is going on? You know. But I mean, what we lack in service members, I guess you can say, we do make up for it in intelligence and logistics. Intelligence, as in like intel gathering and whatnot.
Sure.
Um, and but like either way, like that still doesn't really explain too much about where a lot of that budget is going. But like,
Well, that audit that they failed like $3.5 trillion or something that they can't account for. It's absurd.
yeah, yeah. But
And they're trying to rationalize, just like, oh, it's just a failed audit. It happens all the time. Like, oh, really?
right, right. Like so, in the end, it does come down to just maintaining a whole lot of equipment that's never going to be used, never really has to be used. Like a lot of armed like service members and whatnot aren't really going to they're not going to see combat. Like where
Well, that was my favorite part of Trump's campaign back in 2016. It's like, we have these weapons. Why do we have them if we don't use them? Like, you idiot. This is what I'm talking about, stupidity. It's like a lot of
Stupid.
times it's just not
get
thinking
rid of
long
it
enough.
or
You have the weapons so that you don't have to use them.
right.
So that everybody knows you have the weapons so they don't
God.
fuck with you.
Yeah, you don't use it for offensive purposes. Like
You-
how
it's a big
how
stick,
lowly,
dude. You're carrying a big stick.
Yeah, it's like how lowly do you think of just other random countries? Do you think you were just gonna like invade here and invade there? Of course he thought that. Like he literally like floated the idea of invading country X, country Y a couple times.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
like we attempted a coup in Venezuela under him, I believe, and we assassinated Soleimani, the top general of Iran. You know
Well, we let him be assassinated, yeah.
we it almost sparked a regional
disgusting.
conflict. Yeah, yeah.
I know. It's disgusting.
Yeah,
Speaking of disgusting, and back to our justice system really quick. Peter Navarro going to serve a 4-month jail sentence. What a
Oh,
joke
yeah.
for his involvement in the 2020 election scam. Steve
Yeah.
Bannon got sentenced to 4 months as well, but never had to serve. Roger Stone's sentence got commuted by Trump last minute. He was sentenced to 40 months.
yeah.
And then Michael Flynn obviously got pardoned as well. So none of these major names suffered any consequences, really, for their misdeeds. I mean, I don't blame people for hating prosecutors. Prosecutors are like actors. They get a bad rap, but they're supposed to be like, there are probably some good ones, right? But but prosecutors might be a lot worse than actors in the sense that their stereotype might be true.
Right.
They might need to get down from their high horse and look at the results of their work, because they do not paint a pretty picture of their work ethic. And maybe it's not their fault. Maybe it's the system. Maybe it's the judges. I don't know. There needs to be transparency. There needs to be explanations of how this process works, because for 3 years seems like plenty of time to deal with these very important cases. I
Yeah.
mean, these should have been cut to the head of the line on everything.
Right. Yeah. Completely expedited all the way. Like the most important one, cases. Period. Like across the board. Couldn't agree more.
All right. Well, speaking of Trump, maybe we'll do this one too because we'll do this really quick. I mean, I don't know. Do we want to do anything? We've been talking for an hour and 20. I think we've been pretty good. We've covered all the stories I wanted to. We don't need to do the. Well, let's do this. Let's do this really quick because this is pretty amazing. Look at this asshole.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you call them people. In some cases, they're not people, in my opinion, but I'm not allowed to say that because the radical left says it's a terrible thing to say.
Former President Donald Trump kicked up a firestorm as he described some migrants during his weekend rally in Ohio.
These are bad. These are animals, okay? And we have to stop it.
The Republican presumptive nominee used similar language in a TV interview that aired Sunday.
Our country is being poisoned. Look, we have, and we can be nice about it. We can talk about, I want to be politically correct, but we have people coming in from prisons and jails, long-term murderers.
Also raising eyebrows, Trump warned the crowd of a bloodbath if he's not elected, as he vowed to impose 100% tariffs on cars made in Mexico by China.
Well,
If I get elected, now if I don't get elected, it's going to be a bloodbath for the whole.
There it is.
That's going to be the least of it. It's
Bullies.
going to be a bloodbath for
White
the
trash
country.
bullies.
The general tone of the speech is why many Americans continue to wonder, should President Trump be president?
Former Vice
Hey,
President
Bill.
Mike Pence
Bill might have a
said
conscience.
Again, he won't endorse Trump's November run, while saying he forgives Trump
Pence
in
has
his heart for what happened
maybe
on
a
January
conscience.
6th.
The fact that the president continues to insist that I had the right to overturn the election that day is a fundamental difference.
Saturday night, President Biden addressed the annual Gridiron Club dinner. Aside from several one-liners, Biden took aim at Trump, saying he bows down to Russian President Vladimir Putin and warned that American democracy and freedom are under threat. Skyler Henry.
All right.
Well,
there you go.
Vagueness from
The
Biden.
the bloodbath might be on the horizon.
Oh, I mean, that's to
Stat
be
Pat.
expected.
I'm a lot more worried about you than I am about me, man. I'm in a lot more blue area than you are. You got some MAGA trash in your neighborhood.
Yeah, I mean, in the town I actually live in, yeah, I remember before the 2020 election, probably the busiest intersection near me, like on each corner, like there are just a bunch of MAGA dumb dipshits with their flags and their Trump signs and whatnot, and just like sure, yeah, vote for Trump, honk for Trump and whatnot, and like I think I was like riding in the car with my brother, and as we're like driving like around the corner, like making a right turn and whatnot, we just like flip them off with all fingers. Yeah, it's absolutely.
I'm sure you were in their
disgusting.
head that night.
Oh God,
That's what they want,
right.
though. That's
Of
what
course.
they want. They want the
Yeah.
attention. They want the FU.
Yeah, fortunately,
Bring them down to their level.
I don't think it's gonna be too chaotic though. Like, yeah, you'll have your share of loonies and whatnot, but like everyone like in my vicinity mostly just like.
Oh, I think you'll be
keeps-
fine. I think it's more places like, I say the holy trinity of white trash America is Arkansas, Mississippi, and Louisiana. No, Arkansas, Mississippi, and Alabama. And Alabama is living up to its reputation because of the IVF stuff that we keep talking about. Mississippi is a black hole,
Yeah.
not figuratively. Like it is just like it is
A dump.
It is a
bad.
dump. It's
Yeah.
just bad, and it's
Yeah.
too bad too. Like, there are some coastal areas like the Gulf Coast of Mississippi and the Gulf Coast of Alabama. They have New Orleans actually started in Alabama, I believe. Oh man, I really should know that because I used to live in New Orleans, but I believe it started in Alabama. It might have been Mississippi. Yeah, I'm gonna go with Mississippi. Anyway, those coastal areas are really cool, but the rest of the state is just woo.
Isn't that
Woo!
funny? Isn't that funny how that
And
works?
Arkansas is forget about it. Forget about it
Of
with
course.
Arkansas.
Yeah,
My God.
yeah. I wouldn't be surprised, like if he loses, that each of those states just like catches completely on fire and burns the fuck down. Yeah, but isn't that funny though? Like, it doesn't matter like what kind of coastal area it is. It tends
It's
to
always
be
nicer.
Yeah, it also tends to be more blue. It also tends
Yeah.
to be a bit more liberal.
Well, it's urban.
It-
There's a concentration of people, so it's
Yeah,
like
that's
that
next
human
to the-
experience we keep talking about,
Of
riding the bus
course.
to work. You're
Yeah.
riding the bus to work, so you see the black dudes in town just riding the bus to work just
Yeah.
like you are. They're
Yeah.
struggling just like you are.
It's
So you don't give into that manipulation.
And so there's something about like the tranquility of being by the ocean that
yeah.
that calms the nerves, and you just think, huh, maybe I should give a shit about other people.
Yeah.
Like maybe I should care about the plight of strangers that are struggling and whatnot. Huh? Maybe I am just a selfish dumb fuck.
But I
Like,
would say, to play devil's advocate, I would say if a conservative heard you say that, their response would be like, well, why does the urban and suburban pain matter more than mine? I'm getting screwed by this society just as bad as inner city minorities are. To which I would say, yeah, but they're not voting for the people who are cutting government programs that could help unfortunate people.
yeah,
They're not the ones who are voting for the party that wants less government. Like, what do you think is going to help you out of this? You think the private sector is going to save the country? Give me a goddamn break. I know so many people that think the private sector is going to come in
No.
and save humanity.
it's not.
And that was the other part of that litmus test too that I want to go back to at some point. Was maybe I don't know. Tell me if I already covered this, but the litmus test too. After, do you think America is a meritocracy? Is, do you think it'll be love and kindness that saves us? I think I did say that. Or do you think it's going to be righteous conflict? And yeah, I did. I remember
Yeah.
now that I did.
Yep.
And so, I think that California is easy pickings, man. If you just tell all these
Yeah.
MAGA Californians, like, hey, just burn the Confederate flag, put down the Bible, leave the Bible be for 6 days out of the 7 days a week, and recognize that there are some really serious gun nuts out there that we got to take seriously, and come on over to the Democratic Party, and everything else is negotiable.
Yeah.
Everything else is negotiable. I mean, and now obviously when those negotiations start, you learn that you're going to lose a lot of people. But I think in California, if you can get people past those three things,
Yeah.
they're available. If you can't get them past all three of those three things, then you're just good. You're dealing with a TFG, a too far gone. That's
Yeah.
Kyle Kalinske talks about it.
Of course, yeah, totally agree. I mean, there are definitely some that are obtainable if you actually just sit down and just go issue for issue, or just like.
But they don't want the
Right.
time.
No, of
They
course.
don't want the time.
Yeah, or
Yeah.
or at least like hint towards, the possibility that they could be wrong, or like that there are certain things that they're not considering. So at least they know that like they're not like concrete and just rigid in their positions, because like
Right.
if they are exposed to different ideas, different perspectives,
Right.
like that makes a world of difference. Like if they are more like willing enough to actually hear it out, like of course, like a lot of them are actually like super crazy.
See, in order to get through to someone like that, though, I think you still got to get them past brand name personalities like Pelosi, like Schumer, like Newsom. I think these people have been so built up in their mind as like servants of left-wing Satan that they're just never going to get over. It's like, yeah, well, maybe I would vote Democrat as long as you get rid of these 10 people. And they're the 10 biggest Democratic names that get talked about on Fox News.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But there is something. It's funny though. I mean, I agree in generational change. Not to invoke Jen Perelman, who's running for office in Hollywood, Florida. We wish her the best of luck. But there does need to be a huge generational shift, and it is inevitable. And Biden is indicative of that. That's what I think this Israel-Gaza situation is coming down to. Is Netanyahu's just taking advantage of him. He's just taking advantage of
Yeah.
Biden. Biden's default. He's on autopilot for so many other issues. He's like, oh, Israel, yeah, trust Benji. Benji's been here for a long time. He knows the deal.
Right.
It's like,
Yeah.
no, dude, do you know he got written up on corruption charges 4 or 5 years ago, and he still hasn't served a trial for those? Like, you know who you're talking about? And of course, and the answer is Biden's like, no, he doesn't know. He doesn't know
Right.
what the hell anyone's talking about. He's a
Yeah.
dinosaur. He's a dinosaur.
Yeah,
The
no
dinosaur
kidding.
Democrats, man.
Yeah. So Monica says, "What's up, lefty homies? Just got home from work." Monica has been a long time follower of mine for some years now. I think I remember I did a live stream
cool.
for when I first crossed the threshold of 1,000 subs, which I've clearly like fallen down from just a little bit, but it's cool that she's still here and kicking it with the stat pat, I guess you could say.
That's great.
yeah,
Yeah,
for
wonderful,
real.
wonderful to see the loyalty. Hey, what's her name?
Monica.
Monica, stick around. We got a big surprise for you in about 10 months. You just
Yeah.
wait. We got a big surprise for everybody who's
Hell
going to
yeah.
get us, who's going to be with us from the beginning. You're going to be proud to be a
Yeah.
part of. It'll be special, hopefully.
Absolutely.
We'll see how it goes. Got a lot
Right.
of time to work on it, but we're just
Oh
going to
yeah.
hint at that. We're going to be all sexy about that one. That's a big one. That's going to be a pretty big project. We'll see
Oh
how
yeah.
it goes. For now, I think we should wrap it up unless you have any parting thoughts.
That's pretty much it.
We'll be back tomorrow night, maybe.
Yeah.
We'll see. We'll
Yeah.
see if how news breaks out and our schedules and whatnot. But it's great to
Yeah.
see you again.
Of course.
And from the left coast, we are wishing you all a happy, wonderful evening. And for
Yeah.
my people, reminding you that you don't get change in America by asking nicely.
All right. Thank you all so much for tuning in. We'll see you all very soon.
Yeah.